right, Chad Hasty Show. News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO. We go to the phones. Republican strategist Matt Mackowiak. Matt, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. Good morning, Chad. How you doing?
Doing great. Appreciate you joining us today. There's a lot to get into. Let's start off talking about some of the statewide election news that we're seeing out there. One, what do you, as you know, you've been, Republican strategist, obviously you've been paying attention to the numbers. You've seen the huge increase in voters around the state. What do you make of that? Is that good for Republicans? Is it good for Democrats? Or is it maybe right now a mixed bag?
Yeah, I think it's more of a mixed bag. I mean, obviously it's a good thing anytime more people vote. Exercise that right. It's a very good thing for the future and for representative democracy. But in terms of the political effect, I think it depends a lot on where you're looking. In terms of the geography of the state, there are different areas of the state where there are more competitive races than others. I think a lot of eyes are on Dallas County and Harris County, those two urban counties where there are a lot of important races up and down ballot, from congressional to state house and state senate, down to countywide offices like DA and other offices. So certainly judicial races. So I think the other thing to keep in mind on early vote is just because early vote's high doesn't necessarily mean that one party is bringing new voters to the polls. What we've seen a trend of people moving away from election day voting to early voting from a convenience standpoint, from making sure they're able to vote and getting it done so that a last-minute problem on election day doesn't prevent them from voting, from a standpoint of just trying to, be contacted less by the campaigns, because I know campaigns are removing people who early vote from their phone universe and their mail universe. So I think that what that can mean is it can mean that one or both parties is cannibalizing their election day vote with early. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. I'm reminded of some numbers that were thrown around in November 2016 related to South Florida, where Hillary was up by a huge percentage in their early vote in South Florida. And a lot of the reason for that was the Democrats were taking traditionally election day voters and moving them to early vote. It wasn't actually increasing their overall vote. So I think the last thing I'll just say on this, Chad, is we are looking at very high overall turnout. I imagine we'll go from 4.5 million at the statewide level to 5.5, maybe 6 million, which is a significant increase. This is going to look more like a presidential year. It's not going to look fully like a presidential year, but it's going to look closer to a presidential year than it is a midterm year, and that's an interesting development as well.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at the race for U.S. Senate between Beto O'Rourke and Ted Cruz, Beto over the weekend was on WFAA and their Inside Texas Politics show, and said that he doesn't think he's down in the polls, that he doesn't necessarily think he's down in the polls, that the polls aren't maybe catching the new voters that are turning out. Is that just campaign speak at this point, you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're gonna find out, right? Obviously, he and his entire team have been saying some version of that for some time. They believe that he has brought into the election a lot of new voters, people who have not voted previously, and so those people are not, in their view, captured in the polling. Now, obviously, every poll that's done, the sample is developed in a way that's supposed to capture what the electorate's going to look like, not necessarily what it's looked like in the past. And so this is why you pay pollsters good money, is to make sure that they're putting together a sample that is as reflective as possible of the electorate that's likely to turn out. And so I don't know about the merits of that argument. I saw a statewide analysis done by someone who I think said only 7% of the people who have voted for the first time so far had no vote history in the last 3 or 4 elections in Texas. Now, obviously, you're going to have new movers. You're going to have people moving to the state because of the huge population growth we're seeing all over the state, but particularly in the urban and suburban areas in Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and Austin. So whether you have sort of latent Democrats who've been turned out by Beto, who are going to narrow the margin, I think is a big question. Is it possible Beto could overperform the polls? Sure, that's possible. University of Texas Tribune poll had Cruz up 6. We'll have a Quinnipiac poll today at 1 o'clock. It'll be released. We'll see what that margin is. It feels to me like the race is in the 7 to 9 point range. Could Beto slightly overperform? I think that's possible. I also think it's possible Cruz could slightly overperform. We'll just have to see.
Visiting with Matt Mackowiak here on the Chad Hasty Show. Matt, have you heard anything about there was a story released yesterday from Quorum Report that 40 or so GOP members of the Texas legislature are considering backing Dennis Bonnen for Speaker in the upcoming legislative session. I think there's a lot of jockeying to do on this issue. But have you heard anything about this, and how accurate do you think that is at this point, that 40 members or maybe more are considering Dennis Bonnen for House Speaker in Texas?
Yeah, so I actually don't know too much about what has truly happened here. A lot of that news broke late last night. There was a story that John Zerwas, one of the more senior, high-ranking members of the Texas House, who had announced a bid for Speaker and been running for several months, had dropped out, and that was happening at a time when a meeting of about 40 members was occurring. There's apparently a letter also that's been circulating among members attempting to draft Dennis Bonnen into the Speaker's race. So whether all these things are connected, would seem to be a reasonable conclusion. Does that mean that 40 members have pledged their support to Bonnen and are public about it, and it's a commitment? I don't think we're at that point yet either, but things are happening fast. Everyone realizes that once the election happens, the Speaker's race is going to be very intense. You're going to try to get commitments. You're going to have pledges released. You're going to have some people get in, some people get out, some people team up, because it's a race to the December 1st caucus vote in the Texas House, which is going to have more importance than ever before in the history of the Texas House, given that the current caucus has pledged to support the caucus choice for Speaker on the floor. Now, whether that holds is an open question, but that is certainly the expectation at this point. So I think there's a lot of jockeying right now going on behind the scenes. Obviously, I don't think it's all that helpful, given that the election is now 8 days away. Everyone's energy should be focused on the election at this point.
Before I let you go, I've got to ask you about Hillary Clinton. There have been a couple reports since, maybe 2 weeks ago that some advisors of her are telling her, hey, if Joe Biden doesn't run, you've got a shot. You've got a chance here because it's a weak field. Last night, apparently, she was asked if she was going to run in 2020, and she said that she would like to be president, but she'll give it more thought after the midterm elections. Do you think Hillary Clinton runs in 2020?
I don't. There's really no constituency there for her. She performed so poorly last time. I think this is probably more about just keeping interest in the Clintons. They're going out on this high-end speaking tour after the election, the two of them going together to 10 or 12 or 15 cities. And, you're obviously in higher demand when you are a potential presidential candidate than when you are a former presidential candidate. So I think that's probably the motivation here. As she said when she was asked, does she want to be president? Yes. Does she want to do the things she wants to do to make the country better? Yes. So I see a path to her being nominated in the current Democratic Party in 2020. I really don't. I just don't think there's any intensity there for her. She missed her opportunity, losing a basically unlosable election, given all the advantages the Democrats had, all the advantages she had. But, again, they want to keep interest in this, probably for their own personal and financial reasons.
Yeah. All right, Matt, tell folks how they can sign up for your newsletter and also what your latest podcast topic is over.
Yeah, so we have a statewide newsletter for Texas called Must Read Texas. We take all the news from around the state and put it in one easy-to-read email, send it out every weekday morning. We have 3,000 people subscribe to it. You can learn more or sign up for a free one-week trial at mustreadtexas.com. The podcast is called Mac on Politics. It's available on the iTunes Store, Google Play, Stitcher, and on the web at maconpoliticspodcast.com. And the most recent episode is with the chief White House correspondent from CBS News, Major Garrett, who just wrote a great book about the Trump campaign and his experience covering it. It's a fascinating conversation and a fascinating read.
Very cool. Very cool. Matt, as always, appreciate your time, and we'll visit with you next week.
Thanks, Chad. Take care.
Have a good one. That's Matt Mackowiak. Chad Hasty Show, KFYO.